And good evening, everyone. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 7, Tuesday night, Rotor Talk Live. Hope everyone is doing great this evening. As you can see, the title of the episode, I've named this Making Lemonade. And there's a reason I'm calling it Making Lemonade is I had actually confused Gail. I was confused. Gail wasn't. She kept thinking 7:45 p.m. her time, okay? And I thought she was meaning 7:45 p.m. our time, and I got all that, got the wires crossed on that. So we actually had a Google Hangouts call today. I actually talked to her. She's so excited and very nice. We're going to have her on Sunday at 2 o'clock. We're going to have another Sunday afternoon Rotor Talk Live. It'll be Season 2, Episode 2. There's a link. I already posted it in the chat, and I posted the link in the description as well. So you guys are going to have that. But you guys are in for a treat tonight. Going to have one of my bucket list boys, Ron T. Brown, is going to be here. And we're going to be talking about lots of things tonight. Ron, why don't you give a little intro on what you're going to be talking about, and then I'll finish up, and then we'll get into stuff.
Okay, first of all, I do want to say that I've never flown in a war zone or anything. I am a drone pilot, but I haven't flown in any war zones. But some places in New Jersey can be considered war zones. But thanks. I want to thank Bill for having me on. I know I'm kind of a last minute substitute. And before we get started, I want to congratulate Bill on how many years of marriage?
We just celebrated 8 years.
8 great years of marriage or whatever. Congratulations, Bill. I think we're going to have a pretty good show tonight. One topic that I want to get into with Bill, it was a story on Drone DJ this morning or last night about the local policeman may have the right to take your drone down in the future. So I kind of want to get Bill's thoughts on that. Is that an overstep by the local police departments, or is it valid? Everybody in the chat room, I hope you can weigh in and have some thoughts on this subject too. And also another topic I like to get into, Bill, if we have a chance, is that I'm still an owner of a Mavic Pro Classic. Is it time to upgrade to the Mavic Pro 2 yet? Or should I wait for the Phantom 5? What should I do? Bill and I are going to get into it later in this episode. I'm going to throw it back to Bill, and he's going to start to show off with some good stuff for you guys.
Sounds great, Ron. And thank you guys for bearing with us. Bill couldn't make it tonight. I asked Bill Thomas. He may pop in. I don't know, but if he does, we'll welcome him like we always do here. One of the first things that I wanted to talk about tonight, and I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen with you guys, is let's go ahead, and it's a lot easier now that I have 2 screens here. It makes such a difference in being able to do that. So what I saw, this tweet just came out from our buddy Osita, okay? Based on Inspire 2 V2.0 with Cinecore camera, VIO, and function upgrade, here comes the Inspire 3. Now, he sent this out on Valentine's Day. Osita has been right a lot of times. He's also been wrong a lot of times. And he's probably been wrong more than he's been right. But he definitely stirs the pot up. And if you're a smartphone aficionado, tomorrow is a big day that the Galaxy S10 comes out tomorrow. And they're probably going to announce their folding phone as well. And you also know that they have a couple of preeminent leakers. One is Evan Blass, and the other one is Ice Universe. And their accuracy is incredible. I mean, I follow them, and I see that, and it's just off the charts. But Osita hasn't quite matched up or lived up to that reputation. But he's opening up the door here, and usually when he does things like this, things start to happen. So it's kind of like just an FYI for you guys to take. It makes for something interesting to talk about here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ron. So we're going to talk about this drone laws and being able to confiscate or shoot your drone down. Let's get into that, Ron. Why don't you go ahead and share that with us?
Well, as most people know, the federal authorities have had the right to take your drone down. For several years now. Everybody knows the famous story of the drone that tried to get too close to the White House a few years ago, and so they definitely have the right to take a drone down, and they usually with good reason, because the drone is flying near airspace that's not to be allowed to fly in. But now they want to take it a step further and have local law enforcement be able to take your drone down. But what they don't really have figured out yet is what warrants the local police from taking your drone down. Say if you're if you're not flying in a non-restricted zone, what would give them the right to take your drone down? Would they need like a warrant or some kind of a permission to do it, since it is private property? I mean, the drone, and if you're flying over a public area, like say an open beach, which is actually, most beaches are actually kind of parks, I believe, said what would warrant them? Before the show started, I had a situation. The only time I've ever had trouble with a policeman over flying a drone, I was in a small park near where I live in the summer, and I was flying the drone just over this open public park. Nobody was in the park. There's no rules about you can't fly a drone in the park. And a person approached me and asked me not to fly my drone over his brother's house. And I explained to him, well, I wasn't flying over the house, but I would land a drone and cease my flying activities. Well, before I could even get the drone packed up, a policeman appeared. Car was circling the park. So I approached the policeman and said, are you looking for me? I was flying a drone in the park. And he said, somebody had called, and, I was flying over the house. I said, I could show you the video on the drone. I wasn't flying over anybody's house. I said, I recorded the whole flight. And he was, real relaxed about it. He said, nah, don't worry about it. Just, you're leaving, no worries or whatever. But he did ask to see my ID. But again, what if he would have taken it further and taken my drone down just because somebody said I was flying over their house when I wasn't? Do any of you, Bill, do you think this is an overstep by the local law to be able to take somebody's drone down without, we'll call probable cause?
Yes, definitely, Ron. It's, just because somebody said something, it's the he said, she said kind of a thing. They got to have some kind of a good probable cause. Like, for instance, if you're, buzzing your neighbors for some reason, or, flying over a swimming pool and, wanting to take pictures, or, there's absolutely, there's 100 reasons why they should do something to you, but there's probably 10,000 why they shouldn't. And this whole thing about probable cause and reasonable search and all that kind of good stuff, I think a lot of that, I'm not a legal expert by any stretch of the imagination, so don't get me wrong here, but this is just way, this is going to the extreme. It's just way out there, and I don't think it holds any water. And I don't think it would really hold up in court, because it just, everything goes to the FAA. That's where things start with. Because I had a viewer of mine, and I was going to share this with you, Ron. There's legislation pending out in Oklahoma to make it illegal to fly over a large stretches of rural area without that property owner's permission. And I was telling him, I don't think that's good. I think even if they pass it, I think it's going to get shot down right away, because the FAA has precedence over something like that. I don't think local authorities and local governments are empowered to be able to do things like that. So, no, I don't think so, Ron.
Well, Bill, let me add to that story. I've read that story, and also and what the story gets to is the same thing. Some of the towns at the shore at the Jersey Shore do. What they do is, again, it was in the story, the town regulates that you cannot fly a drone under 400 feet. And the FFA rules that you can't fly over 400 feet. So when the town makes a law that you can't fly a drone 400 feet and under, basically they know that they're making a restricted drone, because they know you can't fly over 400. So basically when they say you can't fly over 400, they know you can't fly at all.
Well, that's real interesting, Ron. One of the things I wanted to share here was, you know, I know here in the state of Florida, you can't fly at state parks. Okay.
Right.
You can fly over them, but you can't fly, you can't take off or land on state parks. All right. Now,
Right.
I had somebody real interesting ask me, "Oh, why don't you go down to Lake Okeechobee?" And I said, "That's that's a national park. I mean, a lot of people don't know that, and that's like 2 or 3 hours south. I mean, and it's all swampland and gators and everything down there. It'll be wonderful to fly, but you can't. It's a national park unless you get a special waiver. And I've talked to several people about trying to get a waiver to fly over a national park. They said you would have an easier time getting a waiver to fly near an airport, say if a VIP was coming to land, than getting to fly over a national park. They said that's how difficult something like that is.
Right, right. Well, you know how that all started, the national park thing, is years ago, somebody flew a drone in not Yosemite Park, but what's the other big one in like around Montana? It's the most famous park in the country. I just can't say it.
Oh, I know.
Yellowstone.
Yeah.
You know, they have the geyser at Yellowstone, right? That's what they're one of the things they're famous for. Somebody flew a drone right into a geyser. I think it was a European. I don't mean to slight Europeans, but and that could affect the environment, you know, of the geyser. That, you know, that could have made it, you know, worse or something like that. So I mean, that was a bad thing. But because one person one time flew a drone into a geyser at Yellowstone Park, now all national parks are off limits.
Well, drone shots just in the chat. Bill, I believe you can take off from the top of your car or the back of your truck. He's correct. You can do that. Like if you wanted to, you know, drive onto like a state park, if you take off from, you know, the back of the bed of your pickup truck or the top of your car, they really can't stop you because it's not their property. I mean, they can tell you to move, but I mean, you know, they can't really stop you from flying. I mean, because it's not their property. It's not the actual park itself. It's your truck.
Right, a park ranger cannot come off the park.
Yeah.
And think as long as you don't take the drone or off or land in their park, he can't technically do anything. I guess he could call the FFA, but as long as you were obeying the FFA laws, they would have no reason to come out too.
Well, it's real interesting because I saw another article today that I wanted to mention to you. Raytheon has developed apparently a system to be able to take down drones via laser, and the article was so biased and so slanted. It was kind of like I'll call it a fear-mongering kind of article, because really what they talked about was, oh, you know, if a drone appears, don't have to worry, we can take it down out of the sky. That's no problem. But yet, and I think we talked about this, or I talked about it on one of the shows, we talked about it on Bill's show, and I think you brought it up, the incident in New Jersey. I mean, how many thousand feet they were up in the air? And, you know, even if they're coming down and slowing down to fly, they probably slow down to about 200 miles an hour. There's no consumer drone that can fly 200 miles an hour, people. You know, it's like, see, we as drone enthusiasts, hobbyists, and Part 107 people, we know better. We know this. But the general public, they see the perception, they see something like an image of a phantom, and it's just like, oh, it's bad news. You know, it's like they can do all this destruction. And you probably remember the video that I put out about the drone hitting the wing of the plane. They did this at University of Dayton. They did that test.
I remember. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you know, it shows how ridiculous it was, because actually they did another test like this with the simulated a bird, and the bird did way more damage than a drone. I was
going to say, a flock of birds is much more dangerous to the airplane than a drone is.
Oh, and I've actually seen on YouTube, there was a video of a guy a bird actually flew through the wind. He had a Cessna. The bird flew through there. He got hurt, but he was able to land the plane. He was bleeding from his head. But I mean, you know, that is a way more serious type of, type of thing to be wary of. I mean, look, remember it happened. We just celebrated the 10th anniversary of it. Was Captain Sully Sullenberger landing the plane on the Hudson because of bird strikes. I mean, right. You know, this kind of stuff happens, and people need to realize, you know, it's like there are a lot more dangerous things to planes out there than drones. I mean, really.
Right, right. I mean, so many people, I don't know if maybe it's movies or TVs. I mean, people talk to me about, oh, what if they put the bombs on the drones and on and on and on. And, you know, I always tell them, well, first of all, when has anybody ever put a bomb on a consumer drone? And you're making stuff up from sci-fi or books or whatever. This, you're policing stuff that never happened.
Right. Well, I have in fact, a neighbor of mine was telling me his wife is in law enforcement. And one of the things that he shared with me, he said, now that's an area that they have to be on the lookout for, because they try to fly drones into prisons all the time. They say, and of course they're not marked. They'll mark, Bill Jones on there, or Steve Smith, or something innocuous on there. They'll have all kind of stuff. He said, but they take those down all the time. He said they're kind of used to it, but that's a real problem. That is a problem. That's something.
Well, and I have no issue if law enforcement takes drones down within a few miles of a prison.
Oh yeah,
if you fly within a couple miles of prison, and your drone gets taken down, to me, you have no recourse.
Oh yeah, I mean,
right.
It's like, you remember, and I think this incident, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was in New Jersey, about the one that actually hit the helicopter, and it was a Phantom 4, and they went back and they found the guy because it had enough of the drone left to get the serial number, and they traced it through DJI, and they traced it to the owner, and they found him, and he got a little bit more than a lecture on that one, because he was flying where he shouldn't have been. I mean, that was just so. Right. But yeah, I think that's a good that's a good topic, Ron. I'm glad you talked about that. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about tonight was, you guys probably remember Sally French. I mean, I've had her on the show. Had her on the show last year. She was actually my very first guest that I ever had on the show was Sally French. She had talked about, and I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here again. Someone has developed an app that lets you search Part 107 waivers by location. Drone enthusiast Ryan Fox created an app that allows you to search and sort Part 107 waivers by geographic location. And I'll go ahead and scroll down here a little bit. You can see here it shows, she lives in San Francisco. It searched the area, and you can see it shows what the waivers for, the address, the company, and actually had a nice conversation. I'm going to drop a link to this article in the description, but I'm sorry. Sometimes I kind of think a little bit like, is this also invasion of privacy a little bit? I mean, but it's a matter of public record, because, if you're applying for a Part 107, it's like I've taught everybody, and I think, Ron, you probably know too, about the FCC grant ID database. And that's one of the things, and one of the big clues how people know that something's coming out as far as drone related. And DJI has actually gotten smart now, because their last several releases, their FCC grant ID date has been the date that it has released. So there's in a lot of these instances, you can't find it out. Actually, we did find out about the Osmo Pocket ahead of time because of that. Somebody went out there and they found it, and they put it out on Twitter, and it exploded. So we knew the Pocket was coming. I mean, that was like a no-brainer. But they guard that real carefully. But with this information too, I mean, it's a great tool. And I think what it's probably useful for is if you get frustrated, if you've applied for a waiver and that maybe you can go ahead and contact one of these people and say, how'd you get here so fast? What did you do? Is there anything I can do to expedite it? That kind of thing. I think it's a useful app. I think it's interesting to be able to do that. I don't really think it's that much of an invasion of privacy. I mean, that's just my 2 cents worth on that.
Well, I mean, you probably, when you apply for your Part 107, it's probably in the fine print that, this is going to be some kind of public record. And where it can be useful is, say if you're a realtor and you're hiring a drone pilot to do, some aerial photos for you, and he tells you he's Part 107, but what if he's not? You as the employer, you could be fined $11,000 if you hire somebody that's not certified. So that would be a way as the employer to check that the pilot really is Part 107 certified. Because I'm sure there's fake IDs that could be fake Part 107 IDs out there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's very easy to do that. Idaho Sledhead, he just commented in the chat, and I thought you might like this, Ron. He said, "I attached my Osmo Pocket to my Hubsan Xeno today. Video upcoming." So.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. He has a lot of great Xeno videos, and he has the Mavic 2 Zoom. So he has a couple great, and he's actually done head-to-head comparisons. Everybody out there, listen, go to his YouTube page. He's got a great channel if you're into Mavics and the Xenos and.
Idaho Sledhead, if you could go ahead and drop your link in your description in the chat so everybody can find your channel. I'm always about. Thank you, Ron. I'm always about promoting other channels as well. That would be great. No, Ethan Mitchell, that's a good question. Does anyone have any experience night flying wave or see the area where it says explain how to do this safely? Any idea of what to say? That's a great question, Ethan. Anybody on the chat can possibly answer that. That would be fantastic. I don't know the answer. One thing that I do know is, and I found this out, in doing a lot of things. And Brian from Smoky Mountain Aerial Imaging, thank you, had told me, that you have to have that strobe light on your drone at all times, and it has to be on at all times when you're doing night flying. That's part of it. That's part of it. So.
Bill, let me ask this, and this is no criticism of anybody that does fly at night or whatever. I mean, I have, almost no interest in flying at night. I have almost no reason to. Do you fly at night, Bill?
No, I don't.
Well, I mean, I maybe somebody in the chat room, again, I'm not criticizing them at all, whatever, for wanting to fly at night. But I mean, I never know because I use most of my drone for photography. So, I mean, and, outside of having a FLIR camera or whatever, there is no photography when the light's too low. So I just wonder what the fascination of flying at night is, unless you're in search and rescue or I know there's applications, but just as a casual drone flyer, what do you really get out of flying at night?
Well, Brian from Smoky Mountain Aerial Imaging just answered, you have to have a lighted base to return to so you can see it from your drone if you get lost. And that's a great point. A lot of people, go out there and they make these stunning aerial videos at night, but it boggles my mind because I did you probably watched my brief series on the Enterprise Dual, Ron, and I went out at night. Now, it was the only time I've ever flown at night. It was in my backyard. I had the porch lights were on, so I could see and navigate. And of course, the light underneath the Mavic comes on because it has that light under the area the Mavic 2 series does. So that light was coming on pretty frequently. But I mean, I had a hard time. I was keeping an eagle eye on the drone itself and not on the screen, and that's absolutely backwards from your normal flying. So, and like you, I have no interest in flying at night at all, none. I mean, it's a miracle. How do you get it back if you don't? Like Brian said, you have to have a lighted base. If you don't have a lighted base, how do you bring it back? How do you get it home? I
mean, some of my toy drone flyer friends, they get all these third-party lights, and they light the whole thing up like a Christmas tree to be able to see it real well at night. I mean, the most I've ever flown at night is one time down the shore. I flew the Spark over like this beach dune construction that was working all night, but I flew at dusk. I mean, it wasn't completely dark when I was flying. And I only flew it, whatever, a couple hundred yards away from me. And the Spark actually has pretty good lights on. You can see it in kind of low light. And I got some video, but of course it was real noisy, from not enough light. But that's the most I've ever flown at night. But again, some of these toy pilots, they light these things up like Christmas trees with third-party lights, and they can see them all over the place. I saw people say about cityscapes at night and whatever, and I understand. And I guess but I've always considered taking the drone for fireworks, but just straight up and straight down again, not actually flying around where I would lose it or not be able to get it back again.
Oh yeah, Brian from Smoky Mountain Aerial Imaging was saying he has a COA for search and rescue and power line, but waivers almost need a lawyer to write the request. I mean, because they're so complicated.
Yeah, and I understand his applications. He's doing it for more of a professional level and things like that. But I mean, I'm talking just for the hobbyist, not the non-Part 107 people, like, what
Oh, yeah.
are you really getting out of, flying at night much?
Yeah. Brent, APO3, can we talk about the new FAA ruling for registration? That was on the list of things to talk about tonight, Brent.
All right, so let's get into it.
Yeah, it's February 25th is the date. It was February 23rd, and I want to thank our very own Steve Carpenter. Let's give him a hand. He's the one that told me, no, it's the February 25th. Apparently, they had either published the date wrong or said, no, we're going to extend it to the 25th. So it is the 25th, and it needs to be on the outside of the drone. What's real funny is I had one of my subscribers said, Bill, he has like 5 or 6 drones, and he printed out labels, and they were all on the inside of the battery compartment. So he has to go over and do them all over again. I mean, it's funny, but not funny. And, there's a reason for that. Number one, I highly encourage you to invest in a label maker. If you haven't, don't go out there and spend, $15 or $20 when you can get a label maker for probably about 50 or 60 that you can use over and over again to print labels up. So that's my number one suggestion. Don't go out on these websites and these people tell you they can do your label for you and all that. Just go ahead and buy a label maker, invest in that, and do it. The other thing is, where to put it on your drone. That's all. That's one of the questions that I've actually gotten asked a lot. And for me, with a Mavic 2, it's kind of easy. What I like to do with mine is put mine on the arm of the drone. I think it's very easy. I had thought about putting them on the battery, but the battery gets hot and cold a lot. And on the arm of the drone, I mean, there's not a lot of heat on there, so I figured it would adhere actually pretty well, and it does. So that's kind of a good place to do that. Ron, have you taken care of yours yet?
Well, guess what? We talked about last week on the bucket list, boys. And remember, I had my label maker out, and I like you just suggested, Bill. You can. I think I got it on Amazon. I just went on Amazon, bought the most popular label maker, and it was less than $20. It came in 2 days, and this is a couple years ago. But I mean, so this weekend I took my label maker down to the basement, and I put a label on every drone that I had that was enough weight. So I agree with you. On the Mavic, I put it on the arm. On the Phantom, I put it on sort of the kind of side underbody of the side. On the Spark, I had to put it. The arms were too thin. I had to put it kind of on the side on the Spark.
Yeah.
And I could go on a bunch of toy drones. What else did I have? I'm trying to think of what else. I got a bunch of toy drones down there, but that for the 3 DJI things, that's where I put them on my DJIs. And I never did the inside battery compartment. I mean, maybe I'll say I'm not as paranoid to hide it, but maybe I should be more paranoid. But I never put anything in the battery department, so I didn't have to undo anything. I just had forgot a few of the drones. The Xeno, I put it on the arm, just like the Mavic. The Xeno is almost like a Mavic. It's like a Mavic copy. Yeah. So whatever works for the Mavic works for the Xeno.
Okay, Ron, I'm gonna. This is your time to shine here.
Okay.
Bill lovingly refers to you as Xeno Nation. So if you can give us an update, any new updates on the Xeno, anything you've heard or.
No, but it hasn't been much news. The Hubsan is a Chinese company, and they were on their New Year's break for seemed like the better part of February. They're back now because Shally sent me a message today. Shally's like, I don't know Shally's title, but she's somebody way up in the company based in China. I mean, she's kind of the point person for almost everything. But anyhow, she contacted me today, so she's back from their big Chinese New Year celebration. But there's been no update. There's been no camera, flight controller updates, or gimbal updates since like the beginning of February. So everything's kind of status quo from the the last time I gave a report. I mean, just the quick synopsis: the flight controller still has a lot of issues. Idaho sled heads on here. He could tell you like it. If you go to the left, it dips. If you go to the right, it goes up in the air. So the flight controller still has a lot of issues. The camera, they've got the soft focus issue mostly knocked out. I mean, it's not Mavic, quality yet, but I mean, it's definitely, beats most of the toy quad. Well, no, the toy quad has a 4K camera. So the camera is good. At first, they only fixed the video, but now they actually fixed the stills look decent too. So the camera's made a lot of progress, but the flight controller still needs a lot of work. So that's the quick synopsis. And when they release another update, or I get any information from Shall or anybody over there, I will definitely pass it on either the Bucket List Boys or Build the Drone Reviewer show.
Well, that's a couple of things, and I'm glad you reminded me of a couple of things, because I know Bill reminded me of one thing. We had a outstanding guest on. I can't tell you how much I know, and I know Ron and Bill. We thoroughly enjoyed having Kelly Shores on last week. That was just an absolutely fantastic show. One of the things I wanted to remind everybody is Spin Up in 2019 is October 19th, and from what I understand, Kelly's still trying to get it at the same place, at the ballpark down there in Austin. So circle the date on your calendar. I mean, that was my mother's birthday. That's an easy day for me to remember. So remember that date, October the 19th. I wanted to get this out before I completely forgot about it. So just to let you guys know. But Kelly was a great guest. I absolutely loved, being a part of that show. He was so much fun. We had a blast. And if you haven't checked out that episode, please go back and watch that. That was just a fantastic episode. Tomorrow night, Bucket List Boys at 8:30 p.m. on Coast to Coast Drones. You're not going to want to miss it. Ron, do you want to tell us about who we're going to have for our guest tomorrow night?
I will, Bill, but I want to, double your comments about it. It was great to have Kelly Shores on last week, and we want to do everything we can to help him promote Spin Up for this year in October. What did you say the date was, Bill?
October 19th.
October 19th. And if the three Bucket List Boys could make it, maybe we could even have a little booth or whatever there. And, if you want to come up and grab a T-shirt or something like that or whatever, or we can autograph something for you, whatever. So if possible, the Bucket List Boys will try the presence there. We'd like to invite some of our, most loyal fans like Steve Carpenter, who I know was there last year, Rick Harper, some of those guys. Would be great to have them with us there. But to move on to what was your question again? Sorry, I got
who our guest is going to be tomorrow night on Bucket.
Oh, our guest tomorrow night on a very special episode of the Bucket List Boys. We will be having Brian Singleton from True Drone Reviews. Most of the people in the chat room I know are fans of Brian's, follow his channel, and we're going to get into a lot of stuff. Brian flies everything. Brian flies DJI. He flies all the toy drone brands. He flies I'm trying to get it. What's the Autel, which Bill's very familiar with the Autel brand. So we're going to get into Brian flies everything. So any question in the chat room, Brian flies everything from the smallest toy drone up to Phantoms and Evos and whatever. So we're going to cover the whole gamut. But what we may focus on is there's two FEMI drones out there now. It's a X8 and an A3, and they're both kind of advanced toy grade drones. Actually, the X8 sort of nips away at the low end of the DJI drones, like the Phantom Classic and the Phantom, the Mavic Pro Classic and the Mavic Air, whatever. And the A3 is sort of like a real high-end toy drone. So they're released, but they're not in wide release yet, but they're coming soon. So everybody's going to be getting these things in the spring. So we're going to kind of get into them a little bit. So it's a great show. Come tomorrow night, bring your questions. Brian's one of the nicest guys in the community, helpful to everybody, gives away so many drones. It's going to be great. And, I just want to give an update on last week. Donnie Hampton's, I know he's out of the hospital and he's home now. He's a good friend of Brian, and I hope he can be on the show tomorrow night too. So I'm going to throw it back to Bill.
Donnie's a good friend of mine too, Ron. And I think you probably know, when I shared with Kelly last week, the first two people who commented on my very first video were Kelly and Donnie. So those guys hold a special place right here. I mean, Donnie and I've chatted with him so many times. I'm going to try to get him on when he's physically up to it, to try to get him on as a guest some night. I think that would be fantastic, or a Sunday afternoon, whatever works better for him. One of the things I wanted to close with this, and I know this is the topic that Ron wanted to discuss. about the Mavic Pro. So why don't you go ahead and get started on that, Ron?
Okay, well, I just want to ask my good friend Bill here. I still have the Mavic Pro Classic, and I love the thing. I mean, I got all the accessories for it, all the ND filters and extended landing legs and cases and stuff. I got all my gear set for it, and it works perfectly for me now. And I know that the video is going to be better if I get the Mavic 2 Pro or even the Zoom. But, one thing nobody's ever, when I post a video and somebody says I like it, nobody ever says to it, boy, it would have looked better if you'd have flown that with the Mavic Pro 2. No, I never get that comment, So, yeah. So I don't know, I know it's a better video, but do I need better video to do what I'm doing? So here's my question: is it I live in a cold climate, so in the wintertime it doesn't matter anyways. I'm lucky if I can fly the drone once a month. Yeah. But I'll keep talking about Bill's getting interrupted here.
Excuse me, Ron, go ahead and carry on.
But I'll take it a show. So I'm going to talk to the audience here now that Bill had to go. Spring and summer's coming up soon. Is it time for me to upgrade to the Mavic Pro 2? That means rebuying all the accessories again, all the ND filters and all the other stuff to use with. I have the extended landing legs to keep it higher, and all the gimbal stuff and all the, how it is. The drone costs you so much, and you pay hundreds of dollars, more for accessories or whatever. Or should I just stay in the sidelines for a couple months and hope for that Phantom 5 to come out this summer? I have a Phantom 4, I have a Mavic Pro Classic, I have Spark, and I have a whole bunch of toy drones, MJX stuff, and so on and so on. So, what's your advice out there in the chat? Go ahead and make that upgrade, or just hang in there with the Mavic Pro Classic if I'm still happy and satisfied with the footage out of it. With a lot of items, the upgrade every model sometimes is not enough of a bump up in features that make it worth it every time. Like I don't buy an iPhone every year. Other things I don't buy a GoPro every time a model comes out, just because I don't know if it's really a good value. If you bump up every time. I mean, I realize you can get the thing where you can, you can sell off your old one and recoup a lot of the costs to getting the new ones, which, I would probably do with the Mavic Pro Classic. I would probably, eventually sell it to help pay for the new one, because everybody likes to have a lot of drones, but at some point you don't want to have a whole room full of drones that, you're not flying all the time. So, Bill had to go. So, if anybody has anything to chat with, we'll look over here away from the camera at the chat. If somebody's saying the Autel Evo, I've considered the Evo. Is the Evo that much of an upgrade over the Mavic Pro Classic to make it worth the switch? I mean, I know it's a great product. I know plenty of people are real happy with it. Brian Singleton, who's going to be our guest tomorrow night at the Bucket List Boys, he has the Evo. He loves it. I have a couple of friends that have it. So, Bill, I just went on my big rant, and I've just looked at the chat. Some people are saying, I should consider the Evo, and I was saying, should I upgrade to the Phantom 2 Pro this spring, summer, or hang on the sidelines and wait for the Phantom 5? And I don't know if I'd love the Phantom 5, but I and my budget wouldn't allow for a Mavic 2 Pro and a Phantom 5, so I'd have to choose. And at that point, I could just keep the Mavic Pro Classic for travel and use the Phantom.
I hate to interrupt you, Ron.
Go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
That I need to take care of. So I'm going to end the show here, guys.
Okay.
Thank you all so much, Ron. Thank you for being here tonight.
Okay, you're welcome, Bill. You go ahead.